story begins with an action-packed thriller where the cops are in pursuit of a high-profile criminal. And it seems that the criminal has kidnapped a woman who is the daughter of an official party in this city. Luckily, the police are able to tackle and surround the criminal. Feeling cornered, he pointed a gun at the woman and threatened to kill her. Seeing that, a policeman named Quentin Connors persuaded him nicely to let the woman go. However, the criminal refused to negotiate. Then, when the situation became tense, Connors was no choice to open fire. But in addition to hitting the criminal, the bullet also penetrated the woman's body. Not long after, the incident immediately received media attention. And in the end, Connors and one of his colleagues were fired because they were considered defaming the police. 2 years after that incident, a gang of robbers came to the American Global Bank in the city center, then introduced to the robber leader, Lawrence. He was a robbery expert who never showed his face in public, but this time he went straight into the field to lead the robbery. After taking everyone as hostage, Lawrence immediately blew the key to the safe containing the money. In addition to taking hostages, they also told the bank manager to lock all the entrances. But unexpectedly, there was a bank employee who dared to press the emergency button. Seeing that, the robbers were furious and immediately finished him off. Fortunately, the alarm was connected to the report system at the police station. As a result, the authorities rushed to the location of the robbery. Once there, a policeman named Barney Callow immediately invited Lawrence to negotiate. He then promised to fulfill all his requests, provided the hostages were released. Hearing the policeman's offer, Lawrence said that he only wanted to negotiate with Connors. Inevitably, Captain Martin Jenkins, Washington's police chief, invited a young policeman named Shane Decker to pick up Connors. And without further ado, they immediately persuaded the former policeman to return back in police duties. Then in return, the police chief will appoint him as a policeman again. Although still upset after being fired, Connors finally wanted to go down the street again. That's because he needs quite a lot of adrenaline intake. Before leaving, the police chief told Shane to become Connors' new partner and was assigned to look after him, so as not to brutalize in wrong time. At the scene of the robbery, the police chief told his subordinates that Connors would lead the hostage release mission. Hearing this, Barney didn't accept it because Connors had killed a hostage 2 years ago. However, the police chief's decision was unanimous. He even told his subordinates to go home so as not to interfere with the mission. Before doing his job, Connors met with one of his old colleagues named Detective Teddy Galloway, as well as other policemen who would help him. Afterwards, he contacted Lawrence and tried to persuade him to release the hostages. Here, Lawrence seemed happy to be talking to Connors, and he also said that the bald cop was a worthy opponent. He then said that all the hostages were fine, except for an employee who was killed by his men. After telling Connors, Lawrence immediately turned off his phone without telling him the main purpose of the robbery. Failing to negotiate, Connors asked the SWAT team to find a way raid into the bank, but because the door was lined with advanced technology, they decided to turn off the electricity inside the bank. Surprisingly, Lawrence guessed the police's plan, so they were able to escape before Connors and the others entered. Although they couldn't catch the robbers, fortunately the police were able to rescue the rest of hostages. And when all the hostages were secured, Connors immediately checked the entire bank. And the strange thing was that the robbers didn't take a single piece of money from the safe. It wasn't long before some members of the FBI arrived to help with the investigation. According to them, the robbers didn't intend to rob the banknotes, because it turned out that what was being targeted was the account of an Arab prince stored in the bank. Meanwhile, the police chief asked Connors to catch the robbers before they got their hands on the Arab prince's treasure, and if he fails, then he won't be able to become a cop anymore. On the other hand, Shane was still curious about what Lawrence had said during the negotiations. Finally, he listened to the recording of the conversation again. Here he realized something, that the robbers' words were similar to a theory from Buddhism called chaos theory. Without thinking, he immediately met Connors to tell him about his findings. The point was, chaos theory often used to confuse the enemy with events that are unrelated to the main goal of the user of the theory. And according to Shane, Lawrence deliberately robbed the bank to outwit the police. So it was likely that the robber would commit another crime after this. But Connors didn't understand his explanation at all. And besides, he also said that Lawrence had only committed an ordinary robbery. Then at the same time, a call came in from his partner, informing him of the identity of one of the robbers. Connors excused himself and gave Shane the money to pay. Then his subordinate, Detective Vincent Durano, said there was an ex-prisoner named Damon Richards who was caught on CCTV while helping Lawrence in the robbery. Not wanting to waste time, Connors and his friends immediately raided the man's house. Seeing the criminal running away, Shane borrowed a motorcycle from a motorcycle community who was gathering nearby, and the chase ensued. Long story short, Damon was finally arrested, and afterward the police called a policeman from the forensic division to look for fingerprints in Damon's house. And not long after, they found a bag containing money, but it turned out that the money was stolen from a different bank. Suddenly, Connors and the others were even more confused about the motives of Lawrence and his group. In addition, Connors also began to suspect Barney, because about 5 months ago, he was the police officer who handled the robbery case at the bank. Before going to Barney, Connors and Shane decided to interrogate Damon's girlfriend, who had been called to the police station. He then asked the woman about the robbery committed by her boyfriend, but unfortunately, she knew absolutely nothing and didn't want to interfere in Damon's problems. On the other hand, Damon couldn't be interrogated yet, because he was still passed away after being beaten by Connors. Not long after, Detective Galloway arrives and says that the money they found came from the evidence room at the police station. In other words, there is a traitorous cop working with Lawrence and Damon. To make sure, Connors and Shane meet the guard of the evidence room. They then asked if Barney had ever taken evidence or not. And after checking the records book, the guard showed Barney's signature. When they had found the evidence, Connors and his friends met the police chief in his room. In this place, Detective Galloway suspected that Barney was part of the Lawrence gang. Moreover, he deliberately stole police evidence and handed it over to criminals. Hearing this, the police chief Captain Martin Jenkins was a little doubtful, because Barney was an exemplary policeman, a good cop. In addition, the existing evidence is still not strong enough to arrest the police. But in the midst of their suspicions, Connors and others got the shocking news that Barney was dead. Reportedly, he was found in his house with a leaking head. Surprisingly, there was no trace of anyone at the scene. On the other hand, the police found a bank plan and a newspaper about the Arab prince. And of course, this proves that Barney was involved in the robbery. Then, not long after, Connors receives a call from Lawrence. Here, the criminal finally tells his true motive, which is to take revenge on the police. But the information was still useless, as Lawrence's reasons were unclear why he wanted revenge on the police. Not long after, the police chief said that the Arab prince had withdrawn all his savings before the robbery. This means that Lawrence never had the intention to rob, or perhaps he just wanted to steal the show and got the attention from the police. As a result, the case became even more complicated, and it looks like Lawrence is indeed using chaos theory, just like Shane said. Therefore, Connors decided to start the investigation all over again. Without lingering too long, the police went straight back to American Global Bank. At this location, an IT expert informed them that the robbers were 5 people. However, only Lawrence and Damon had their identities revealed. Then, while checking the CCTV footage, Shane found oddities in one of the rooms, which contained many computers. Seeing that, Connors also asked forensic experts to check all these computers. Unfortunately, forensics couldn't find a clue there. Finally, Connors invited Shane and the others to have dinner together. They then relaxed for a while, because they were still stuck. Connors then went into the toilet, and at the same time, Shane looks curious about the relationship between Galloway and his senior. According to rumors, they were once dating, but the relationship ran aground in the middle of the love journey because of parental disapproval. After dinner, Shane gets information from an IT expert about the identity of one robber. Not wanting to waste time, he invited Connors to raid his house. On the way, they both read the robber's criminal record, which unexpectedly, he had often broken into bank security systems. until he became a target of the FBI. Seeing that, Connors also remembered his old colleague named Jason, because 5 years ago he had handled a bank break-in case. Long story short, Connors and Shane finally arrived at the robber's house. At the same time, it turned out that Lawrence was also already in the house, and a shootout ensued. Unfortunately, Lawrence could escape after killing his own men. All that he did was make it more difficult for Connors to catch and trace him. Luckily, there was still a daemon they could interrogate. At first, the villain didn't want to say a word, but he was immediately frightened when Shane threatened to finish him off. Inevitably, Damon finally told Lawrence's true identity, which turned out to be the older brother of the criminal who had been killed by Connors at the beginning of the story. So it can be concluded that the motive for revenge is the death of the younger brother. Before Lawrence can continue the action, the police rush to the robber's hideout. On the way, Connors confided in Shane, whom he had begun to think of as a friend. Connors said that he regretted his actions for accidentally killing Lawrence's sister and a hostage, even though he only intended to take down him, not finish him. As a good friend, Shane said that Connors' actions weren't wrong. After all, he was just doing his job as a police officer. Arriving at the location, they saw two of Lawrence's men talking. Although they were caught off guard, Connors told all his men to wait until Lawrence arrived. However, the plan didn't go smoothly, as they were caught by the criminals, and the only way out was a shootout. Connors then split his team into two to split up and catch Lawrence's two men. Inside the headquarters, they found many photos of Connors and other policemen taped to the walls, which meant Lawrence had planned the action very carefully. They then went through every room and finally found the criminals, but again, they tried to fight back. While Connors was beating up the robbers, Galloway found a bomb inside the base, and without thinking, he told everyone to get out right now. From a distance, Lawrence hid behind a tree and watched the explosion. Meanwhile, Galloway and Shane are devastated that they failed to save the Connors trapped inside Lawrence's base. Moreover, Galloway already considers him as her most beautiful ex. At the same time, Shane tried to be strong and rise from sadness. He then told Galloway that they must not make Connors' sacrifice in vain, and no matter what, they must be able to catch Lawrence. Shane then returned to the police station in a heavy mood. There, he was informed by an IT expert that Lawrence and the others had installed a virus on the bank's computers. Beck's use of the virus, they could steal $1 billion from the Arab prince's account, and according to the IT expert, Lawrence's action was the biggest robbery in the world. From here, Shane was even more convinced that Lawrence had actually studied chaos theory in his robbery, because from the beginning he made the police doubt and confusion, so the situation became chaotic. As a result, he was able to steal without being detected. After getting the information, Shane got a call from Lawrence trying to distract him, but it couldn't affect this cop. And to avenge Connor's death, Shane is determined to catch Lawrence with his own hands. With his mind, heart, and soul in shock, he decides to return to the office to continue the investigation. However, the Washington police chief asked him for healing, so as not to lose his sanity. Even so, Shane still wanted to solve this problem as quickly as possible. Then he checked Barney's signature, and found an oddity. As a result, he called the evidence room guard for interrogation. Shane also asked why Barney's original signature was different from the signature in the evidence room notebook, but instead of answering honestly, the guard seemed to be hiding something. Suddenly, Shane became angry again and accused him of being a Lawrence conspirator, and after being forced, the guard finally admitted that he had conspired with the robbers and made Barney as a scapegoat. In addition, he also said a very astonishing fact, where Lawrence's real identity was a policeman named Jason York. And not only that, he is also a coworker and good friend of Connors. In short, during the rescue mission, Lawrence accidentally shot the hostage. And as a friend, Connors immediately shot the criminal who took hostages, so that he himself also received the same punishment as his partner, Jason. But unfortunately, the punishment from the police was to immediately fire them without any trial at all. Because all this time, they were honest and exemplary policemen, they are the good cops. Because they didn't accept the decision of the superiors, the two friends were determined to take revenge. Since then, Lawrence, or Jason, decided to leave the city and change his identity as the brother of the criminal who had been killed by Connors. So he has a false motive to outwit the police. And to accomplish his mission, he bribed the evidence room guards and brought along 4 of the most wanted fugitives, including Damon. After making a team of criminals, Lawrence and Connors chose to make Barney a scapegoat. That's because Barney is a competent cop who might be able to uncover their plan. Hearing that explanation, Shane couldn't stop thinking apparently he had been fooled all this time. He then met the int expert and asked for help to track Lawrence's location. And after finding his location, he and Galloway went to a restaurant. There Lawrence was seen just finishing dinner. As the villain wanted to leave, they both pointed their guns at Lawrence, and in the end, a shootout was inevitable. Feeling overwhelmed, Lawrence finally escaped towards the pier. But this time, Shane didn't want to fail again. And as a good cop, he would do anything as long as he could catch him. Because of his hard work, the young cop was finally able to finish Lawrence off. On the other hand, Galloway was also happy, because the criminal who was troubling the citizens was no longer there. After dinner, Shane suddenly remembered the money Connors had given him. And on second thought, it smelled like the money that Barney had taken from the evidence room. Out of curiosity, he went to Connors' house and searched all the corners. Unexpectedly, Shane found a book about chaos theory, even though Connors once admitted that he didn't understand the theory at all. At this point, Shane suspected that the bald cop was still alive and deliberately faked his death. Without lingering, he immediately went to the airport to make sure that his guess was not wrong. And sure enough, when he arrived at the airport, he got a call from a mysterious number, which was none other than the bald Connors. Of course, Shane felt disappointed, because the mastermind of all this was a senior whom he respected very much. Apart from being disappointed, he also felt betrayed and was only used as a tool to kill the robbers, so that Connors could take and enjoy his own stolen money. Connors then said that his hard work with Jason or Lawrence was rarely appreciated by the police. Despite solving major crimes, they never received any appreciation, just even a promotion. Instead, when they made just one mistake, they were immediately fired. And because of the chaos theory he learned, Connors was finally able to confuse the police until he finally succeeded in carrying out all his plans. Although at the same time, he is very sad, because his best friend and partner, Lawrence, has died. At the end of the movie, Connors decides to leave Washington, leaving Shane still dumbfounded. From now on, he will turn over a new chapter of his journey elsewhere with the money he stole from the Arab prince. And with that actually happened, the movie ended.